is
We're going to talk about how Patanjali saw Buddhism and said yoga is just as good.
Hi everybody, welcome to Seriously Lighthearted Yoga. Today we're going to be talking a bit about the history of modern yoga. We're going to be talking a bit about Patanjali and how he formed the yoga that we really kind of latch onto and know today.
And Buddhism.
And a bit of Buddhism. We're going to throw that in there too. So what are we joining up here? What are we talking about?
Yeah, guys, so there's been a lot of debate in the scholarly world about this, but essentially, I'd like to bring up the point that yoga, the way it's been set up in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is that 8-limb path that we've been talking about, Ashtanga Yoga, sometimes called Raja Yoga, that path is coming to be seen as a response to Buddhism, almost, because Buddhism arose out of what are called the Vedas, and Buddha read the Vedas, was very well studied in yoga and the Vedas and all of these philosophical texts, meditative worship texts, and he kind of rejected all of that and created Buddhism, which is essentially all of that stripped for export. Buddhism is very, very simple. It says that suffering happens in your mind and that you can overcome that. He created this 8-fold path based on the Four Noble Truths that kind of brought his teachings to everyone who was interested. And a few hundred years after that is when we think our boy Patanjali here showed up. And what did Patanjali do? Well, he codified all these yoga practices that were pretty much already existing. So all the practices that, Buddha had mentioned or studied with these Vedic texts that we talk about, and then codified them into the 8-limb path that we know, Ashtanga Yoga, the Yoga Sutras. So there's a lot of information coming out these days that says that the Yoga Sutras may just be a sort of response to Buddhism. It's kind of like India was getting really Buddhist and Patanjali came in and said, yoga's still cool, look, it looks exactly like Buddhism, and then wrote out an 8-fold path for people. So that's just a fun little point that isn't really very important to the yoga practice, but is, if you want to talk about it at a cocktail party, it could be interesting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Be prepared for a potential hailstorm of contradiction, but
yeah, some people might not like it. But
yeah, as it turns out,
it's not very important to your yoga practice if it doesn't want to be.
No. Yoga had to compete to survive, and it is surviving and thriving today because of what Patanjali did. So take it as you will, and roll with it. But that's kind of the relationship between yoga and Buddhism. Somewhat similar forms nowadays, not necessarily in the past, but definitely now. So give somebody a high five. Use that as at a cocktail party, like Kai said, and I don't know, might be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Play with it.